The transport ship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star, its hull scorched from re-entry, its engines screaming protest. On the observation deck of the human colony stationed on Europa's ice plains, Administrator Chun watched the vessel's erratic approach with growing unease. "That's not a diplomatic shuttle," she muttered. "That's a dumping run." Beside her, lead technician Marcus Webb adjusted his viewport, his weathered hands steady despite the tension crackling through the control room. He'd seen enough in his 42 years, enough broken machinery, enough failed systems, enough people who'd been discarded by those who should have valued them most. This landing felt like all of those things at once. The ship touched down with a bone-jarring crash that sent ice particles spraying across the landing pad. No grace, no ceremony. Just a brutal, careless landing that said everything about what was inside. The hatch opened. A single figure was shoved out onto the frozen platform. She stumbled, caught herself, then stood perfectly still, a young alien woman wrapped in ceremonial robes that were far too thin for Europa's sub-zero temperatures. Her skin was a pale lavender, her hair a cascade of silver that moved like liquid metal. Her eyes large, luminous. Gold scanned the colony with something that looked like fear, but she didn't make a sound. Behind her, a Zirithi ambassador emerged, tall, imposing, his face twisted with barely concealed disgust. "Delivery complete," he announced, his voice amplified by his translator, "Princess Lyri of House Vexhara. Consider her," a gesture of goodwill from Queen Sulthera. Chun stepped forward, her diplomatic smile frozen in place. "We weren't expecting." "You weren't expecting anything of value," the ambassador interrupted, "and you're not receiving it. The princess is defective, deaf, cannot hear, cannot speak properly, cannot fulfill any diplomatic function. Her mother thought your little ice colony would be an appropriate placement." The words hung in the frozen air like poison. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. The ambassador continued, "She reads lips somewhat, though poorly. She understands basic written Zirithi. Beyond that," he shrugged. "She's your problem now." He turned to leave. "Wait," Chun started, but the ambassador was already back inside the ship. The hatch sealed. The engines roared, and the transport lifted off, leaving Princess Lyri standing alone on the ice, shivering, abandoned. Chun turned to Marcus, her diplomatic mask cracking. "What the hell do we do with her?" Marcus was already moving forward, pulling off his thermal jacket. "We start," he said quietly, "by treating her like a person." Lyri felt the vibrations before she saw the human approaching. Heavy footsteps, purposeful, not aggressive. She'd learned to distinguish between aggression and intent through years of reading movement, of watching body language when voices meant nothing. The human male, older, scarred hand stopped a respectful distance away. He held out a jacket. Lyri stared at it, then at him. His lips moved. She caught fragments. Cold. Inside. Safe. She'd been reading lips since she was 4 years old. It was imperfect. Half the sounds humans made were invisible, formed in the throat, lost in the darkness of the mouth. But she tried. She took the jacket. It was warm, heavy. It smelled like machinery oil and something else, something like kindness. Though she didn't have a word for that in any language she knew, the human gestured toward the colony entrance. Lyri followed. The human colony on Europa was small. 200 souls scraping out an existence, mining ice and studying Jupiter's radiation belts. It was a hardship post. People came here because they had nowhere else to go, or because they were running from something, or because they believed in the stubborn, human idea that even the harshest places could become home. Marcus led Lyri through the main corridor, past the curious stares and whispered conversations. He brought her to a small quarters module, basic but warm, with a bed and a desk and a viewport looking out at Jupiter's massive swirling face. He pointed to the bed, to the desk, to a small device on the wall. His lips moved again. Yours. Stay. Help. Larry nodded slowly. Marcus started to leave, then stopped. He pulled out a datapad and stylus, set them on the desk, and tapped them twice. His meaning was clear. If you need something, write it. Then he left. Larry stood in the small room for a long time, staring at the datapad. No one had ever given her a way to communicate before. They'd tried when she was young. Tutors, specialists, speech therapists had worked with her for years, trying to force sounds from her throat that she could never hear, could never modulate, could never perfect. Eventually, they'd given up. Defective, they called her, broken, worthless to the crown. Her mother, Queen Silthera, ruler of 12 worlds, had looked at her with something worse than hatred. Disappointment. And when the human colony requested a diplomatic liaison, her mother had seen an opportunity. Get rid of the embarrassment. Frame it as generosity. Let the humans deal with the broken princess. Larry picked up the stylus. Her hand trembled. Then she wrote in careful Zirathi script, "Why are you being kind to me?" She didn't expect an answer, but she left the datapad on the desk anyway. Marcus returned 2 hours later with food, a simple meal of synthesized protein and vegetables. He found the datapad with Larry's question. He sat down, took the stylus, and wrote in slow, careful strokes, "Because you deserve kindness." When Larry read it, something in her chest cracked. She looked up at Marcus. His face was weathered, lined with years of hard work, but his eyes were steady, honest. She wrote, "I can't hear. I can't speak well. I'm useless." Marcus read it, then wrote back, "You can see, you can think, you can feel. That's not useless. That's human, alien, whatever. That's alive." Larry stared at the words for a long time. Then she wrote, "No one's ever said that to me before." Marcus smiled, a small, sad smile. "Then they were idiots," he wrote. "The first weeks were hard. The colonists didn't know what to do with Larry. Some avoided her. Others stared. A few tried to talk to her, speaking loudly and slowly, as if volume could somehow bridge the gap. It couldn't. Larry spent most of her time in her quarters, watching Jupiter's storms through the viewport, feeling the isolation wrap around her like ice. But Marcus kept coming back. Every day, he'd bring food. He'd sit with her. He'd write messages on the datapad. Slowly, painstakingly, he began to learn. He noticed that Larry responded to vibrations. Her hands would twitch when heavy machinery activated, when footsteps approached, when the colony's life support system cycled. She felt the world in ways he'd never considered. One day, Marcus brought a small device to her quarters, a haptic feedback pad he'd modified from mining equipment. He placed it on the desk and activated it. The pad vibrated in patterns, short pulses, long pulses, rhythmic sequences. Larry's eyes widened. Marcus wrote, "This is Morse code. Old human communication system, based on vibration and light. I can teach you." Larry's hands flew to the datapad. "Why?" "Because," Marcus wrote, "you shouldn't have to rely on people reading your notes. You should be able to talk over the next month." Marcus taught Larry Morse code. Pause. She learned faster than he'd expected. Her fingers danced across the haptic pad, sending messages through vibration that Marcus could read through a connected display. For the first time in her life, Larry could communicate in real time. "This is amazing," she tapped out one evening. Marcus grinned. "You're amazing," he said aloud, even though she couldn't hear him. But she read his lips, and she smiled. Word spread through the colony. People started coming to Marcus, asking about the princess, asking. "She's just wired differently. She experiences the world through vibration, through sight, through touch. If we want to include her, we need to adapt." "How?" Administrator Chun asked. Marcus pulled out a modified datapad. "We install haptic feedback systems in common areas. We we learn basic Morse code. It's not hard. And we stop treating her like she's fragile. One of the miners, a woman named Sarah, raised her hand. What can she do, though? I mean, no offense, but what's her role here? Marcus looked at her steadily. I don't know yet. But I know she's smart. She's observant. And she sees things we don't. We'd be idiots not to use that. It started small. Lyrie began accompanying Marcus on his maintenance rounds. She couldn't hear the machines, but she could feel them, the vibrations of failing bearings, the irregular pulses of struggling pumps, the subtle wrongness of systems under stress. She'd place her hand on a machine and point out problems. Marcus couldn't detect with instruments. How the hell did you know that coupling was misaligned? Marcus asked one day, staring at the part she'd identified. Lyrie tapped out on her haptic pad. I felt it. The vibration was uneven. Like, you're a better diagnostician than half my crew. Lyrie's role expanded. She began working with the engineering team, using malfunctions in as many months. People started seeking her out, not as a princess, not as a diplomatic, Placehholder, as Lyrie, as someone valuable, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. 6 months after her arrival, the message came, a transmission from the Zirithi homeworld. Official. Formal. Queen Silthera herself, Administrator Chun, called an emergency meeting. Marcus and Lyrie were both present. The holographic display flickered to life, and the Queen's face appeared regal, cold, impossibly beautiful. I address the human colony on Europa, she said, her voice transmitted through universal translators. It has come to my attention that Princess Lyrie has proven useful to your settlement. This is unexpected. Chun glanced at Marcus. He kept his expression neutral. The Queen continued, I am prepared to offer public recognition of her contributions. She will be recalled to the homeworld, celebrated as a bridge between our species, and given a position of honor in the court. Chun looked at Lyrie. This is what you wanted, isn't it? To go home? To be accepted? Lyrie stared at her mother's holographic face, the face that had looked at her with disappointment, the face that had sent her away like garbage, the face that now wanted her back because she was useful. Lyrie picked up her haptic communicator. She tapped out a message. Marcus read it aloud. I appreciate the offer, Your Majesty, but I must respectfully decline. The Queen's expression flickered. You would refuse the honor of returning to your people? Lyrie tapped again. Marcus translated. These are my people. The ones who saw value in me when I had nothing to offer. The ones who adapted their world to include me, instead of demanding I change to fit theirs. The ones who taught me that I'm not broken, just different. The Queen's eyes narrowed. You would choose a frozen rock and a handful of humans over your birthright? Lyrie's response was immediate. I would choose respect over recognition. I would choose belonging over birthright. I would choose the people who loved me when I was worthless over the people who only want me now that I'm useful. The silence stretched. Then the Queen spoke, her voice ice. You are making a mistake, daughter. Lyrie's final message was simple. No, mother. Sending me here was your mistake. Because now I know what I'm worth. And it has nothing to do with you. The transmission cut off. Chun let out a breath. Well, that just happened. Marcus turned to Lyrie. You sure about this? Lyrie smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed her face. She tapped. I've never been more sure of anything. The colony held a celebration that night. Someone rigged the common area with a modified sound system that converted audio into vibration and light displays. The floor pulsed with the rhythm of music. The walls lit up in patterns of color. Lyrie stood in the center of it all, her hands on the floor, feeling the music through her bones, watching the lights dance. She was surrounded by people, humans, who had learned to communicate with her, who valued her contributions, who saw her as one of them. Sarah, the miner, tapped out a message. You're stuck with us now, princess. Lyrie responded, not a princess. Just Lyrie. Even better, Sarah sent back. Marcus watched from the edge of the room, a cup of synthetic coffee in his hand. Administrator Chun joined him. You did good, Webb. I didn't do anything, Marcus said. She did the work. I just gave her the tools. That's everything, Chun said quietly. Sometimes the biggest thing we can do for someone is show them they're capable. You gave her that. Marcus looked at Lyrie dancing, laughing silently, surrounded by friends. She gave us something too, he said. She taught us how to see, really see. Not just what's in front of us, but what we're missing, what we're ignoring. She made us better. Chun nodded. Think the Queen will try again? Probably, but it won't matter. Lyrie knows who she is now. Nobody can take that away from her. Years later, when new colonists arrived on Europa, they'd hear stories about the alien woman who revolutionized the colony's maintenance. Systems who could diagnose mechanical failures with a touch, who'd turned the settlement's communication protocols upside down. They'd hear about the princess who chose ice and isolation over palaces and power. But mostly, they'd hear about the family she built, the humans who learned to speak in vibration and light, who valued ability over hearing, who proved that belonging isn't about where you're born or how you're built. It's about who sees you, really sees you, and chooses to stand beside you anyway. Lyrie never returned to the Zerethi homeworld. She never wore a crown. She never attended a single royal function. But on cold Europa nights, when Jupiter's storms raged across the sky and the ice sang with vibration, she'd place her hand on the colony's hull and feel the heartbeat of her home. Not the place she was born, but the place she was found. And that was worth more than any throne. Sometimes, the ones who are cast aside become the foundation others build upon, not because they were fixed, not because they changed, but because someone finally gave them the tools to show the world what they'd been all along: extraordinary.